From WBBZ-TV Sports, it's time to Beat the Champ. Now, here are your hosts, Paul Peck and Sue Novoitsky.
Well, hi, everybody, and welcome to Beat the Champ. My name is Paul Peck with Hall of Fame bowler Sue Novoitsky and guest scorekeeper Fran Bax. We continue to roll on here at Rapids Bowling Center, Niagara Falls. Sue, first time we've been to the same bowling center for back-to-back months, but things are a little different here this month, aren't they?
That's right. Today will show the difference you can make in a bowling center. You can't just take the same equipment out because they lay out a different pattern. And even though the bowlers can't see their obstacles, they know that this is a sport pattern and it's going to play completely different from last month.
It's the first time we've ever had our defending champion come to a new month off a 300 game. That's what Chuck Jagodzinski did 2 weeks ago, but once again, he's back here, but not under the same conditions.
Right, and so that kind of makes it where maybe the champ doesn't have the advantage because he chose not to qualify on the condition. So he's just coming in today with his equipment and figuring it out as he goes.
And a good lineup of bowlers that will challenge him, including Tim Frenz, newcomer Joe Elbers, and one of our best Beat the Champ bowlers, that's Dana Voytovich. We're hanging out here in your hometown here. Are you going to behave? Can we behave?
I'm going to do my best to keep myself in line and hopefully not be so busy up there, even though there is a sport pattern laid down out there for this taping that hopefully Chuck and Tim and the other bowlers will be able to maneuver it, and hopefully I won't have too much work to do in just putting strikes on the scoreboard.
We don't want Fran to have to work too hard, but you get to work as hard as you want to, enjoying what should be another great episode of Beat the Champ. So let's get rolling. So here we go. It's match number one here of our second month's stay at the Rapids Bowling Center, and here's Chuck Jagodzinski, fresh off that amazing 300 game 2 weeks ago to get us started. And it won't be a 300 game this time, will it?
No. And I don't anticipate too many mistakes that aren't going to show up. Like, that's the difference between a sports shot and a house shot. A house shot is definitely more forgiving, where even though it's a modified sports shot, it's still going to emphasize every one of your flaws.
Yeah, that's a great way to explain it, is that what the sport shot doesn't allow you to do is get away with anything.
Exactly.
So explain to people, again, because we were here for a month under a house shot, and now we're here for a month under the sport shot. Give everybody a little bit of an idea of what the sport shot is going to do and what the challenge is for this set of bowlers, of which we'll watch Tim Frenz be the first one up here.
The challenge is to be more accurate, and I think we're going to see, we saw Tim go light as well, just the same way that Chuck did. And I was going to say that I would think that the high rev rate bowlers will still be able to create a little bit of area, where someone like Chuck, who might be a little bit more accurate but is very down and in, almost will not create the same area because he doesn't have any right. If he misses right, the ball's going to hang. And if he misses in, there's not going to be the hold that we normally see.
Right. Where's the places that you want to be on the lanes now? Where's places you don't want to be on the lanes?
Well, the funny thing is we're still seeing Chuck. We're going to still see these guys play in the same spot because it's a similar pattern to a house pattern. Like, if you look at it, like we have the graphic. I mean, if you look at it, it's still crowned. It's still drier on the outside than it is in the middle. But because there's oil on the outside, the ball's still going to keep the ball from hooking because there's more oil on the outside than what you would normally see on a house.
And farther down the lanes than it was last month.
Right, and these bowlers are going to, as they bowl, they're going to push this oil down the lane. Right. There's a heavy concentration right in the middle, and it tends to make it a little bit uglier.
Right. Well, and I was going to say, I think for everybody watching at home, don't expect the same kind of scores that you saw last month. And you even noticed in the differences in qualifying, there was a noticeable difference in the scores of what qualified for the spots last month here and what qualified this month.
And here these guys, like I said, they're going to play in the same spot you would normally see them play. What's going to happen is sometimes you're going to see the ball go a little bit light or a little bit high, and you're going to say, well, that shot looks perfectly good. The problem is you can't get away with those shots. And but when they throw it good, like we've just seen, it's a very playable shot because, as you know, I bowled on it. very, very playable shot.
Spare strike in the first 2 frames for both Chuck and for Tim, as you saw on the Castellone Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram scoreboard. And here now in the 3rd frame, you see Chuck trying to find where things need to be. And this is an unusual lead for a guy like Chuck Jagodzinski.
You could tell by his body reaction that he knew off his hand. He just missed a little bit right on it. He's got good ball speed, so it's gonna spray through the front, and it's not going to recover the way it normally does. But he knew that right off his hand. But to the naked eye, it really didn't look off by much.
30-year-old Tim Frenz is making his 2nd appearance here on Beat the Show. The last time we saw him, he actually bowled Chuck Jagodzinski at Brad Angelo Lanes back in December. So 2 appearances for Tim, and the unfortunate matchups that he's had to go against one of our best bowlers in Chuck Jagodzinski both times. And if you remember from December, the most, I know what Tim wants to be much more memorable for his bowling than for his attire. He is the Picasso of the pins based on the pant selections.
I know, he's the master of those, the clothing line there. I'll tell you, staying out of trouble is going to be really important today.
This feels like a good time to take a short break. We'll be right back with more action on Beat the Champ.
Instant replay on Beat the Champ is brought to you by Transit Lanes and Keglers. Join us for bowling, food, and drinks.
Welcome back to Beat the Champ. Let's get back to the action here on WBBZ-TV.
So it's open frames for both guys here, and Chuck will have to try to follow up his from the 3rd frame.
And this is what I've noticed in my experience at bowling since I started, and I started, great shot there. I started right around short oil. Short oil came out, and it actually scores started to get higher, and they got progressively easier. So when you go out on a sport pattern, like people that bowl out on tour, the girls that bowl on tour, most of the tournaments put out modified sport shots, or more than that, harder sport shots. And when you bowl only on house shots and don't see this, it's not that you're not a good bowler. These guys are great bowlers, but we never see these conditions. So it's hard to be sharp on them when you never see them.
That's a double for Chuck Jagodzinski, 2 in a row. So maybe Chuck took him a couple of frames to figure it out, but maybe he's finding the groove a little bit. And now Tim, coming off that open frame, will have to bounce his way back.
Yeah, we've got 2 guys playing these lanes completely different. Chuck's basically throwing rockets to the pocket. He's trying to not use too much hand and just get it on line to the pocket, where Tim is finessing it, and he's trying to use a softer speed and open it up.
What happens when you finesse it? You can kind of see that it just he didn't put the full arm swing into that one as he's trying to find his way around the lanes here.
Well, here's what happens. You think to yourself, I can't miss right and I can't miss in. And the minute you put yourself in that mind frame, you are in jail.
So back-to-back opens for Tim as he leaves 4 pins in the 5th frame, and that's a pretty big hole that he's starting to build himself after Chuck is working a double, and maybe Chuck's finding the groove, as you can see on the Castellone Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram scoreboard, manned by our buddy Fran Bax, our guest scorekeeper for the first show. Tim's got his grandfather here, who was his coach and sort of mentor in the sport of bowling, and good to see that he's been able to get him here for this. And that one is better, but still not going to get them all down.
So that ball is reading the middle of the lane too early for him. And I'm going to go back and use the word jail again. Right now, he can't, like, he has no room at all. And the ball, you can almost watch it bite up early in the middle of the lane. Once it gets past the arrows, the ball's actually starting to make its move. And that's too early, unless you're playing a rollout, which he is not.
All right, well, at least Tim is able to get a spare here in the 6th frame. Chuck Jagodzinski is making his 24th appearance here on Beat the Champ. Only Mike Zarcone with 29 has more. 23 wins against 13 losses. The 23 wins, second only to Zarcone as well. And of course, as we mentioned, Chuck coming off 2 wins in a row here at Rapids 2 weeks ago when he went 279-300 to advance to this match. And now he's got it in the midst of a triple.
Well, Chuck's got a plan, and he is standing all the way to the right. He's actually created himself a little bit of hold where he's standing.
That is 4 in a row. Don't forget, we've got qualifying underway for next month. We're not back here again, as much as we love it here. We're going to Central Lanes in Salamanca. So the top qualifier down there in the round of 24 will win a television from our friends at Dirt Cheap TV. And there's Tim Frenz finally doing what he wants to do with a good strike.
Still, that ball is hooking too early for him.
It did take a big hook, didn't it?
Yeah, but it starts too soon. We'll watch the ball motion, and the ball should be further down the lane before it starts to make its move, and it's starting right at the arrows.
Next up, the winner of this match will take on Joe Elbers, making his Beat the Champ debut. I know Tim Frenz would love to win this because he and Joe are friends. They were teammates in high school on the Clarence High School bowling team. So they would love to be able to go up against each other, but this guy will have something to say about that. And right now, it's sort of a narrow lead that Chuck is building on with 4 strikes in a row. Make it 5.
What a great adjustment.
And that's what makes Chuck great. That makes him one of the best guys in town. Took him, you know, it's funny, you asked Chuck, did you come out and try to qualify here just to get a feel for the lanes? And Chuck kind of laughed at you. Nah, I'm just going to wing it. And he did for 3 frames. And now he's done winging it. Oh, there it goes. Late fall on the 7 for a 6th in a row. And now it's up to a 70-pin lead for Chuck Jagodzinski.
Yeah, unfortunately, Tim's not going to win this one. But just a great adjustment. Chuck's making these lanes look, you know, a little easier than they are. He's really, truly making great shots. Nice.
And that's 3 in a row for Tim, but him finding the range a little bit too late. So it's going to be a victory for Chuck Jagodzinski. 3 in a row for Chuck. Doesn't matter the place, doesn't matter how much time off he's got, doesn't matter the oil condition. He's Chuck Jagodzinski, and he just keeps winning. We'll come back and we'll talk to Tim Frenz about how this went for him and get you ready for Jagodzinski versus Elbers. We are off and rolling in Niagara Falls at the Rapids Bowling Center. More Beat the Champ right after this. It's a 256-200 win for Chuck Jagodzinski over Tim Frenz. You struggled early, and and then you found your groove. But when you're bowling against Chuck, that's almost a little too late. Isn't it?
I definitely found it too late. There's a little bit of a hang spot if you missed right out there, and a couple shots, I got a little hesitant, afraid to get it out there and miss right, and it cost me in the long run. So the split in the open there, but even if I make those 9 in a row, it's going to be tough to beat. It's a pretty high score for 256 to put out there.
Yeah, Chuck ends with 9 consecutive strikes. Give everybody a feel for what this sport shot oil pattern is going to challenge everybody else coming up.
Well, compared to a lot of the other shots that we've had out here, your room for error is a lot smaller. So, even a couple of shots that I hit my target, I threw it a little fast, so I left a 10-pin, and your reaction definitely, your accuracy and your speed and everything, you have to be a little bit more accurate than you do on some of the more wide open patterns. But Chuck's averaging, 252 against me right now, so not a whole lot I'm going to do no matter what pattern it is.
You need to get back on this show and bowl someone other than Chuck.
Yeah, I know.
So we can see your next pant choice and everyone can adjust the color on their TV.
Yeah, I got another set already.
Love it. Always good to have Tim on the show. Chuck Jagodzinski and Joe Elbers, our next match coming up on Beat the Champ. Let's see if Joe Elbers can be the one to end this pretty amazing run that Chuck Jagodzinski is on. 279, 300, 256, ending with 9 consecutive strikes in his last match. Let's see if he keeps the streak alive. Second match of the day here at the Rapids Bowling Center, and that streak won't stay alive, but nonetheless, Chuck Jagodzinski's kind of got it dialed in here, doesn't he?
He does. But everybody has their quirks that they work with, and for Chuck, he drifts to the left. So even though he's standing like on the first dot, he's ending up somewhere around the second arrow with his feet. So the obstacle for Chuck on the left lane is going to be he's limited as to far right he can stand because of that ball return. So he knows he's getting shoved up against that return.
So here's the debut of Joe Elbers on Beat the Champ, 27 years old from Clarence, New York. He comes from a bowling family. His family owns the Clarence Bowling Center. That's where Joe works. So he may be new to this show, but he certainly is not new to the Western New York bowling community.
Nope, but it is his first telecast, and I'll tell you, I bowl at CBA with in the same league as Joe on Mondays, and he is a cool customer, and it's gonna be interesting to see him on this shot because of course he's grew up in CBA. It's his comfort zone.
Yep.
And I come in, dragging my bowling balls in, and he doesn't even take a practice ball. He's deadly.
And Joe may have the loudest and most enthusiastic cheering section we have ever had here on Beat the Champ, and we'll show you his buddies as this thing moves on. You will hear them. They are loud and proud and doing what they can to help their buddy Joe come up with a win. So family and friends and his high school bowling coach here to cheer on Joe Elbers in his Beat the Champ debut.
Nice shot there. Oh, that went long on him.
Never hooked, yeah.
Yeah, that went real long.
So a bit of a challenge there for Joe in the second frame. Hey, look who's back. We have upgraded on the Castellone Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram scoreboard. Janelle Sabin is back. Thanks to Fran Bax for doing a good job in match number 1, but it's good to have Janelle back.
Yes.
I know Fran got all dressed up for the TV performance today, but, he's still a distant second when it comes to the fashion outlet there that Janelle provides. So it's an open in the second for Joe Elbers, and once again, no one knows how to pounce on a mistake by his opponent like Chuck Jagodzinski. Let's see what Chuck does. Way to the right on the approach.
Yeah, so the right lane will not be an issue for him as long as his line holds up. But like I said, the left lane, he's butted up against that ball return. He can't go any more right.
I mean, he almost kind of hooked in from the right.
Well, that's what I mean. He has a natural drift, and his body just carries him to the left.
I think Chuck's got enough athletic ability that he can get a hop over the ball return if he really wants to get that right.
No, but I'll tell you what does happen, and oftentimes on the tour, it's the opposite, where the guys get pushed very far in, and they have to stand in front of the ball return and take a 3-step approach.
Really?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. I don't think it's going to come to that for him because I'm sure he's going to manipulate ball equipment to some extent.
Oh, and that was a little close on the spare pickup, a little bit of a kiss on the side of the pin.
I almost counted that one out. That didn't look too good.
So Chuck is able to go spare, strike, spare in his first 3, and let's see what Joe can do. Obviously, as you mentioned, bowls regularly at Clarence Bowling Academy on Monday nights in their league. 5-time starter on the high school bowling team in Clarence, and spent 2 years bowling at ECC, where he helped Cats win a national junior college championship. A little far right on that one.
Yeah, Joe's
fishing a little bit at the moment.
Joe's having a little tough time here figuring out how to play these lanes, and this is the challenge to this sports shot is, finding an area where you have at least a little bit of room. And what's interesting is on a synthetic surface, the oil gets splashed. It doesn't absorb in as a wood lane would absorb. So as someone's playing inside, they're actually splashing the oil to the right, almost creating a little bit of a wall.
A little bit, like?
But if you play to the right, you can almost use the splash as your hold. So I think Chuck as long as he plays as long as he's bowling people inside of him, they will continue to create that little wall of hold for him. I don't know if that
Really
makes
interesting.
sense.
I would have never thought the difference between the oil effect on synthetic versus natural is exactly what you said. If it's in your natural lanes, it soaks the oil in and takes a little bit of it away.
Right.
Almost like putting wax on your car and having the water beat up.
Right, so on the synthetic lane, it's going to splash or it's going to go into your bowling ball, but it's not going to sink into the plastic.
A momentary 7-10 split moment there for Joe, but the 10 was able to fall, so he'll look to get that 7-pin and get another spare here in the 4th frame.
And that was a much better shot, so because at this point Chuck hasn't run away from anybody, you know, Joe could still figure this out.
3 spares and an open in the first 4 for Joe Elbers. Chuck Jagodzinski, 2 spares and a strike in his first 3.
It was an awesome accomplishment for Joe to come out here and make this show, but he only bowls at Clarence, so it's not like he gets to see these type of conditions.
Chuck's shaking his hand there because he didn't turn it over enough, did
he? Exactly.
Which is a little bit of the danger of starting as far right. Yes?
It's gonna go straight right because you're not in dry, just total dry boards where the ball is just going to take hook for you. Good spare.
So a spare is rescued in the 4th frame for Chuck Jagodzinski, and now he'll slide over to lane 29 for frame number 5. How much fun was that? I hope everybody had a chance, and I actually was able to catch it on the Sunday night replay. Even though we were here when it happened, It was fun watching that 300 game again. The crowd was into it. Chuck was into it. It was just, you know, we've had 5 300 games here on Beat the Champ, and they've all been amazing to watch, and it was really fun to see Chuck do it for the first time here on the show.
Well, Chuck just, you know, puts his emotions out there. He's a lot of fun to watch. And this looks like a good time to take a break. We'll be back with more Beat the Champ right after this. Welcome back to Beat the Champ. The 2-8 coming the other way.
6th frame now for Chuck Jagodzinski. Still can't get that 2nd strike. As we mentioned, qualifying is already underway at Central Lanes in Salamanca for next month's stop here on Beat the Champ. And top qualifier in the round of 24 is going to win a television from Dirt Cheap TV.
Yeah, he's got a lot of midweek qualifiers, which is always interesting if you're out and about. But they're 9:15s in Salamanca, so you can have a little bit of a drive back. But still nice to get out there and go midweek as opposed to tying up the weekend.
Hang out in Ellicottville a little bit and take a ride down there. Beautiful time of year down there. Hit the ski slopes and then, you know, hit the lanes.
Nice shot there.
There's a strike for Chuck. First since the 2nd frame for Chuck Jagodzinski.
Yeah, that was fun when we went down there to Bradford. It was a beautiful drive. And
it was also not February.
I know. I know.
Let's be honest now.
Well, who knows? It could be a snowstorm. It could be 60. It's still crazy here.
7th frame for Joe Elbers. The pride of the Clarence Bowling Academy. There it is. There's his first strike, and there's his buddies cheering him on in the front row. We've got a good crowd here at the Rapids Bowling Center as we record here. Good turnout of a lot of people here to cheer their favorite bowlers on.
Absolutely. It's such an exciting lineup because we've got good shows coming up. New people, new faces. I'm glad that Joe finally made it out here to make the show. I've been bugging him about it on Mondays, and I'm glad he finally did it.
Hey, we love our regulars, our superstars, Chuck and Zarcone and Dana Voytovich in our next match. But it's nice. It's nice seeing some new names and some new faces, and that's 2 in a row for Joe Elbers. Can he put a little late push here on Chuck Jagodzinski?
See, that's what bowling's all about.
Yes, it
right
is.
There.
Yep, he and his boys having some fun.
Wow, did you see where Chuck started on that one?
Yeah, pretty much about halfway to lane 32.
Oh, boy.
he moves any more to the right on lane 30, he'll be coming from the parking lot.
I can't even respond to that because I'll tell you, Joe is working so hard, and that's the one thing on a shot like this is you're working so hard to try to not make a mistake, and your opponent pulls one, and that's what it is. That's what happens.
What a response by Chuck Jagodzinski. That's now 3 in a row after the double for Joe Elbers. And as you see on the Castellone Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram scoreboard, just when Joe might have been getting a little of that momentum and pushing, Chuck pushes right back. Three-time Section 6 All-Star bowler in high school at Clarence was Joe Elbers. There's 3 in a row for him.
So mathematically, this is not over, but Joe needs them all, and
got to strike his way out.
He's going to have to strike his way out, and Chuck's going to have to fill the 10th frame. He's going to have to mark. If he opens, you know, Joe is still on paper, has a chance here. Just needs these next 3 to force Chuck to have to spare.
All right, let's see if Joe is up to this challenge. 10th frame, and Sue told you what he needs. There's one.
Good job. Can I tell you, it is no easy task to go up on this shot under this type of pressure and come up and make these shots. So hats off to Joe for coming up.
And by the way, look who you're bowling against, right?
Yeah, he's got a great shot.
I mean, you're bowling against, right now, maybe the hottest bowler in Western New York. Second ball of the 10th frame.
Let me see some carry!
Oh, that will put an end to Joe's attempts to knock Chuck Jagodzinski off, and that's just about the ugliest way to have it come to an end.
Yeah, he got that in just a little bit, and these lanes are unforgiving.
Yep, so that's a tough one. So unfortunately, to finish off what will not be a win is a 7-10 staring at you, and 1 pin for Joe Elbers. And a nice round of applause from his buddies and his friends. Good performance with the 197 that goes on the board for Joe Elbers, but it's going to be a 4th consecutive victory. Chuck Jagodzinski, 2 last month, 2 so far this week, and we have got a superstar showdown coming up for you next. It's Chuck Jagodzinski and Dana Voytovich, but first, we'll check in with Joe. When Sue and I return, it's Beat the Champ at the Rapids Bowling Center back in the Falls right after this. A good late push from Joe Elbers. Not quite enough in the 212 to 197 loss. You started off tough, you struggled a little bit, and then you really found your groove, and I think you started to push Chuck a little, didn't you?
I found the right line a little bit late, you know, but a couple splits, they cost me in the end. And, you know, you try to get count early on, try to get set you up in the end to succeed, but sometimes you can't win them all.
All right, well, at the very least, you and your guys from over there at Trainwreck Sports probably win our award as the loudest and most enthusiastic cheering section.
That's right. You know, the train never stops, and you know that, Paul.
Yes, I do.
We had a little fiasco earlier of the week, but guess what? The boys came up clutch today, and, you know, I always like to have my friends, family, all them supporting me, and you know, that's great. Make the bowl great again. People cheering, going nuts. Make the sport nuts and crazy. A raucous crowd of people cheering on Joe Elbers. He'll be back on this show. I know he will. We also know we're getting more Chuck Jagodzinski. Going to be a fun match coming up. Chuck and Dana Voytovich, stick around. We're back right after this. Well, you're in for a treat because this is about as good as it gets. Chuck Jagodzinski and Dana Voytovich are 2 of the best bowlers in Western New York. They are 2 of the best bowlers we have ever had on Beat the Champ. And to see these 2 guys go head-to-head right now is going to be fun.
Yeah, you know, I kind of fan out on this two-handed thing on. I just don't get it. I just don't get how they do so well in the shot. But he won the Masters, so The shot doesn't get any tougher than that.
No. Now, you also mentioned that you thought this oil pattern would favor higher rev rate bowlers, which clearly Dana Voytovich is.
Right. I guess this is another example of, you know, something different from the conventional style with the two-handers and their rev rates.
Well, on cue, Chuck and Dana have struck in the first frame to set the tone for this one. Dana Voytovich making his 10th appearance on Beat the Champ, an amazing record of 15 wins and only 4 losses. Last time we saw Dana, it was over the summer. He won 3 in a row, and then he lost to Ryan Moreau at the Tonawanda Bowling Center. That was in July, so we haven't seen Dana in about half of the year, but we also know that when we do see him, he usually wins, and those 15 victories that he has here on the show, 4th amongst all of our Beat the Champ bowlers, trailing only Mike Zarcone, Chuck, and Jeremy Zimmerman.
Wow. He's right there in the thick of it.
Yep. Meanwhile, Chuck Jagodzinski now has won 4 matches in a row, 2 last month, 2 today, up to 25 overall wins here on Beat the Champ. And Mike Zarcone might be getting a little sweaty there, knowing that Chuck's getting close to that record that he holds right now. And if Chuck keeps winning, we have the potential for there to be a Chuck versus Mike matchup in show number 3. How about that?
Wow.
And I wouldn't put it past Chuck to continue to keep winning to get to that point.
Oop.
Missed that one a little bit, didn't he?
Yep, instead of it going right to left, it went straight up the boards or just a hair right of his target. Can't get away with it.
51 years old from Lancaster, employed full-time at the Attica Correctional Facility, is Chuck Jagodzinski. And there's a spare in the 3rd frame after strikes in the first 2. So now the reigning Obenauer Masters champion, which we hope you enjoyed watching our replay last week that we showed you from earlier in the year, where Dana was able to beat Jack Jurek and win the Obenauer Masters Championship, Buffalo's premier bowling tournament. So maybe that was foreshadowing to know that we might get a chance to see Dana.
It's amazing. The entries have already come in to put in for that tournament. It's wild. It's right around the corner now that we've crossed over Christmas.
Yep. And same thing with Dana. Missed it a little bit to the right, so both guys with strikes in the first 2 and now looking to make it spares in the 3rd. Dana Voytovich owns our 2nd longest winning streak here on Beat the Champ of 11 matches in a row, and part of that came right here. It was back in 2017 in December when Dana Voytovich won 8 in a row at Batavia, Mancuso's lanes in Batavia, and then came here to Rapids and won 3 more before losing. So clearly Dana likes this place, bowls well here, and only Jeremy Zimmerman's 14 wins in a row tops the 11 in a row that Dana Voytovich won.
14, that was amazing.
Of which 5 of those came here at the Rapids Bowling Center as well, too, for Jeremy Zimmerman. So that's why we've told you, this place always seems to give us really cool moments, and this is one of them, these 2 guys going at it.
Can't ignore the fact that Chuck came off a regular house condition, came here on a sports shot without qualifying at all, and has still just put on a great show here today. Great shot there. Man, he throws pins everywhere.
3 strikes in the first 4 frames for Dana Voytovich. So now Chuck Jagodzinski may be getting pushed early in a match for the first time this week.
Missed the hit on that one, too.
And that's sort of his money lane at number 30 on the right.
Right.
Where you can take that big swoopy
Good
approach.
Observation there. Yep. He has all the room in the world.
I'm not just a pretty face on this show.
I know.
There are plenty of pretty faces on this show. I'm not one of them. So I have to carry my weight around here. So
Dana's not opening up as much as I kind of expected to. He is really keeping it a little bit more online. But when we were talking about that splash and bowlers being inside of Chuck, Dana could still be building him up a little bit of hold which he can use to his advantage. So.
Tough ring 10 there for Chuck Jagodzinski. He'll bring out that boxing glove spare ball and get his 3rd consecutive spare in a row, but at the moment it's a 16-pin advantage for Dana Voytovich as Janelle updates you and all of us on the Castellone Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram scoreboard from here in Niagara Falls. The falls may not be frozen, but the beer is ice cold here at the Rapids Bowling Center. So come on out and join us.
Yeah, we had a great crowd today. I turned around and looked and I was like, wow, what a great crowd.
By the way, was that the stupidest story you'd ever heard of, that people were reporting that Niagara Falls had frozen a couple of weeks ago? I don't know if you heard about that.
I didn't hear about that.
Yeah, there were national websites that said Niagara Falls had frozen. So, which I think we all know is impossible, but let's not let the facts get in the way of a website story.
A little too much pressure there.
So the facts on this one are Dana Voytovich trying to grab a spare here in the 5th frame in what is clearly a good, tight match, as you would expect, between these two great bowlers, Chuck Jagodzinski and Dana Voytovich.
Right, he could have opened it up and taken a little bit of a lead, but the 10-pin stood in his way in, and we're looking at a 4-pin match if he makes this 10-pin. Good job.
The action will continue on Beat the Champ in just a minute.
Instant replay on Beat the Champ is brought to you by Transit Lanes and Keglers. Join us for bowling, food, and drinks.
Welcome back to Beat the Champ.
The mental part can never, ever be dismissed in these type of competitions. As strong as any of our games are, we are only as good as having the right ball in our hand, stand in the right place, and knowing it. You know, because this is such a mental game, and I think we talked about it a little bit a few months ago with Brett Angelo. There really is no defense, but if there is going to be a defense, you try to slow down a fast bowler, or you try to speed up a slow bowler.
Right.
Those are the little things you can maybe do to throw people off, but you know.
Just 22 years old is Dana Voytovich. What an amazing start to his bowling career at such a young. He's only been bowling for 5 years, but to see what he has done is amazing. As we've outlined, the championships he's won, junior college championship at ECC, and all the achievements and accomplishments that he already has on his resume. Don't forget qualifying at Central Lanes in Salamanca going on right now, and top qualifier in the round of 24 will win a television from Dirt Cheap TV. So Dana Voytovich, while Chuck Jagodzinski's been bowling for 43 years and has been incredible throughout that entire time, to think that Dana has done some of the same amazing things in just 5 years of bowling kind of blows you away, and doing it with the two-handed style, which is new in itself.
Right.
And he counters with a double. So Chuck goes double, Dana goes double. Now let's see what Chuck does in frame number 8.
The one difference, I think, is what you'll see with a bowler that's been around as long as Chuck is. Chuck's dealt with adversity, and I'm not going to say that Dana hasn't, but I mean, Chuck's seen...
Been there, done that.
Yeah, a lot of adversity, and you know, Dana's coming into the game, and you know, I've seen a lot of improvement with him in just the last couple years, so he's definitely put his time in and learned. But you know, a lot can happen over a course of 40 years of bowling. A lot of changes in the game, too.
That's true. Well, clearly look at a 22-year-old two-hander versus a 51-year-old traditional bowler.
Right.
There's your example right there. Spare in the 8th for Chuck, strike in the 9th.
Wow.
That pin did about 3 or 4 360s before it almost spun its way into the pit, didn't it?
Until he gave it that death stare that he just gave it.
I've seen that death stare from Chuck before.
Yes, you have.
It's made me want to spin around and fall into a hole.
Yes, true. Even though, you know, Chuck seems a little chatty and almost like you think he was distracted, he's not.
No.
He is very mentally strong, and he believes very much in himself.
Right.
And his abilities, and it really has pulled him through some situations that, you know, maybe he could have gone the other way.
So it's a lead of 20-plus pins at the moment for Chuck Jagodzinski as Dana starts the 9th frame and will finish out here. And I was going to say, he needs a bunch of strikes, and he won't get it there. He'll miss on the 3-6.
So what we actually have out there, once you compute all the strikes and get these guys in the same exact frame, we've actually got a 2-pin match.
Okay.
If he makes this spare, he's up 2, but Chuck has a strike up, which is going to give Chuck an advantage because he can shut him out.
So this is a critical spare here for Dana Voytovich, as you might imagine, in the 9th frame of a tough match against a great opponent. And then it'll probably come down to what Dana can do in that 10th frame. Taking his time on this one, starts way left and missed it. Boy, that was as left as I've seen anybody throw, maybe ever here at Rapids.
What kind of whammy does Chuck put on his competition?
Wow.
Wow.
That was just so unusual in its start and its finish for Dana Voytovich.
So now we're looking at the best finish for Dana is the 2-11, which is going to force, could only force Chuck to mark and get 9. But Dana needs these all of these just to make Chuck have to work.
Well, he bounces back with a strike there, but
that 9th frame, I'll tell you, that is the worker frame. Chuck posting a strike up in that frame gave him the ability to shut Dana out, and Dana missing in the 9th frame made a huge difference in this match.
Well, it's
pretty much took him out of it.
At that critical point in the match, it's not a surprise that a lot of these matches get decided in that 9th frame.
Well, let me tell you,
it sets you up for what you either need to do or what the other opponent has to do.
And you have that extra box there in the 10th frame, so you put that strike in there, and now all of a sudden you can have a 4-bagger in one frame if you put that strike up in 9.
Anything to Dana taking a long time the last couple of rolls here? That's a little unusual too.
It worked. He needed those.
Maybe just needed it to clear his head a little bit.
And I think that's another thing that's really a lot more difficult than what you would think is spare shooting on a modified on a sports shot, because the middles are tight. The middle is tight, and what you would use as your hook spot, which would be more to the right, isn't as hook. It doesn't hook as much as you think. But as it gets through that oil in the middle, it takes off on you.
Mm-hmm.
It really complicates the spare shots as well as the first shot.
Right. So once again, if you weren't with us at the very beginning of the broadcast, we're on a sport shot pattern here, which is much different than the house pattern that we were on last month, even though we're here at the same bowling center.
Nice finish.
So Dana Voytovich does what he needs to do, which is finish strong and post his 2-11. So 10th frame for Chuck Jagodzinski. What does he need?
Well, if he strikes, he wins. Or spare 9.
And there's the strike to clinch the win.
That was a big kiss on that 10-pin.
So leave it to Chuck Jagodzinski to do exactly what he needs to do to take any drama out of it. It is a 5th consecutive win for Chuck Jagodzinski, and he is going to stick around for another week. This was a great classic matchup between two of the best bowlers in Western New York, and it comes right down to the 10th frame, and it's another win for Chuck Jagodzinski. We'll talk to both guys and get you ready for next week's show when Sue and I return to the Cataract City. It's Beat the Champ at the Rapids Bowling Center. We're back right after this. One of the best matches we've ever had on the show between two of the best bowlers we've had on the show. It did not disappoint. Chuck Jagodzinski, 233 to 211. Dana, you were leading this match all the way up into the end, and you stumble in the 9th frame. What happened?
Yeah, the ball returns here, they're big and wide and long. So shooting stuff on the right side when you have to move left is tough for me because I generally walk left. And if I stand too close to it, my back foot will kick it. So I tried to get in front of it, and I just missed. That's all it is.
What about the challenge of bowling one of the hottest guys in town? I mean, you've been the hottest guy in town most of the year, but going up against Chuck, how much do you feel like you have to raise your game?
just bowl my game and I'll win. Just make the spare, and it's a lot different when he's got a double in the 10th.
Yes, it is. All right, that's a little bit for you to try to make Dana feel better. I know he does not, and he will not until he gets his next win. But speaking of wins, Sue, it's 5 in a row for Chuck.
Chuck, 701. I'm trying to tell the spectators and the fans at home these lanes are hard, but they are a little bit tougher than they look, aren't they?
A lot tougher. I got 3 great opponents. They average a little over 200, so you know it's tough.
Well, this last game you got pushed a little bit more. You were actually down for most of the match. How does that play on you mentally?
I just try to keep it in the pocket, and hopefully I carry enough and see if I got a shot, and I had a shot, so did it.
Are these ball returns going to be an issue going forward?
No, but what shot's next week?
There you have it.
Well, we know Chuck's going to be back next week. 3 new bowlers will try to challenge him and knock him off. We'll preview next week's show. Get you ready for it when Sue and I return. Great match with these 2 guys. Hope you enjoyed it. We're back for Beat the Champ right after this. I loved everything about that match, and I loved it even more when Dana Voytovich told us that the ball return played a role. I mean, that's how deep these guys will get in figuring out how they win and lose.
We did talk about it, though, while we were bowling, that ball return was an issue for both guys. Chuck's just not going to let it bother him. He's going for his 6th win, which is a personal record for him. So we're going to see how he handles that one.
Yeah, nobody knows his stats better. There's 2 guys that know their stats better than anybody, Zarcone and Jagodzinski. So a chance to have a personal best on the show. Jake Weiser, Mike Malwitz, and Tom Brady. Yes, Tom Brady on our show next week. Can't wait for that. How about some crowd here today? This was one of the best crowds we've ever had.
I know, that was so exciting. It was so much fun. It got everybody involved, and that's what this is all about. It was so much fun.
It sure is. So we had a great start to our 2nd month here at the Rapids Bowling Center. Only going to get better after this. Make sure you're with us next week. We'll be right back here in Niagara Falls for another fun-filled edition of Beat the Champ.